Jake, how are you today? How was your day?
Great. It is hot. God bless Freon and air conditioning.
Very, Um,
We had a wine club packaging day today, so we were very robotic in putting together our three tiers of wine club. Normally I'm not there, but right now we're a little short staffed, so I jumped in and it was a lot of fun. Yeah, we got it done in a short time and feel good about it.
yeah, wonderful. And you got the little bottles,
Mhm.
right? Little bottles? I don't know.
Yeah,
Little
yeah, we did
wines.
the little bottles samples for all of our wine clubs as well, so everybody can experience the wine without having to crack open all the bottles. It was when we first launched the Zoom tastings for the wine club, nobody showed up. We have about 300 total members in our clubs, and in the 3 nights for the three different tiers, we had maybe 20 people total show up, and I was like, what's going on? Why isn't anyone showing up to our tastings? And then I realized maybe they don't want to open up their bottles, or they thought that that was a requirement. So the next shipment, the next quarter, we just put the samples in automatically, and we had about 50% turnout this time. So
That's
we're
it's
going to be
really smart.
we're going to do it going forward, and now we're trying to figure out ways to um, do it for not just club members, but other people that can't visit right now. We were known for a blind tasting, and can't really do that right now. So we thought, let's find a way to do it virtually.
Yeah. It is a thing, and I mean this with like affection, is a thing that civilians definitely worry about is opening bottles and having like multiple bottles open at the same time. And I forget that my life is just a refrigerator full of open bottles and pouches. And like I've definitely come to terms with that reality. And so I think doing samples like that definitely like allays a lot of people's fears that they don't necessarily, I don't know, someone told every single person in the world that wine will go off like almost immediately. And I'm working really hard to teach people that, put it in the fridge. It's going to last a bit. It's going to be fine. If the fridge can hold your salmon for a week, wine is going to hold just as well. Like it's just going to be preserved just as well. So,
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
one of those
so,
things.
some people still want to hold on to them for a little bit longer, and they don't want me telling them when they have to open their bottles. And I think also they were feeling a little intimidated in that they thought that they had to open their bottles or else they shouldn't show up. So I don't think I was very clear with the communication. We figured it out
Well,
though.
get better. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, let's
Be
start the
be
show.
best.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wine Coach at Home. Whole Cluster Heroes is the theme of the night. I'm very excited. Um, I asked Jake very kindly to join me. Jacob, welcome back. I'm really glad to have you. I hope you're excited to taste some wines. I recall back when I was a baby som and I was doing the advanced course with you, how in awe of you I was when we tasted Pinot, I think like the first two classes, I think they were Burgundy. And I was like, wow, like this is a level of talking about Pinot Noir that you were going on about whole cluster, and it was definitely something that I had really had no idea about, and like didn't have any opinion one way or the other. And so I'd say over the years, you've definitely led the way for me in terms of defining whole cluster culture in the world, and I'm really excited to have you on it. So we're going to taste some wines. Are you excited? Are you happy to taste these wines? I mean, these are pretty fucking good wines.
I have mixed feelings. Well, first off, I didn't know that, and I feel very. I'm a little
Lovely.
shy now. But when you sent me the picture of the three other wines in tonight's lineup, I was a little nervous at first, but I think our wine is gonna be able to stand up to everything. I love whole cluster wines. Actually, I probably talk too much about whole cluster wines because they are my favorite, and they've been my favorite for some time. So I didn't even know I liked it until I started asking how winemakers made the wine, or what's the common denominator between all of the Pinots, the Syrahs, and the Cabs that I like, and now other varieties too. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, it's if someone asked me, if someone bumped into me on the street and said, "Hey, do you like whole cluster wines?" I'd be like, "Yeah, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I don't have an opinion." But upon reflection, my favorite Pinot Noirs in the world, two of them are in, three of them are included on this list on the wines we're tasting, are all feature whole cluster fermentation. And upon reflection, like I said, I really do enjoy whole cluster. Definitely love Syrah. Definitely love whole cluster Syrah. Definitely like this edge that it gives Pinot Noir. And yeah, I don't self-identify as a fan of whole cluster, but I think of, like I said, you know, the wines that I really love to drink are all defined by whole cluster, and so, you know, maybe I need to start like putting that on in my bio, my Instagram bio. Love Lambrusco
Well,
and whole cluster.
Well, I think that there's this stigma against whole cluster, and I was talking to Bruce about this a little while ago, and actually Sam Melanson as well. People associate it with Beaujolais Nouveau. They associate it with cheap and cheerful glue wines that should not cost more than $12. So they have this association as it being inferior. But what we've come to realize, aside from some of the most iconic wines, is a lot of people are doing this with other grape varieties. They're just not talking about it. They're hiding it because they're worried about the stigma. Like even things like we started messing around with Chardonnay and Chenin and Riesling using carbonic, and now we actually do carbonic with everything across the board as of 2019. And I thought it was going to be weird and different. And then I started tasting the wines, and they're similar to some of the wines I've had from other places. So I thought, I think other people are doing this. They're just not talking about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, I was doing my research. I think Chateau Margaux does like 1% whole cluster. I think like they definitely,
So
it's
actually
definitely
10,
in their recipe.
so probably
Yeah.
10%, but they're just admit to one.
Yeah. Definitely in there. Where is it? I've got articles. But yeah, that's like you. If you're Chateau Margaux, if you're, you know, your whole like your first growth Bordeaux, you can do whatever you want. You don't have to do anything. You could just put, you know, anything in a barrel, and you will sell for thousands of dollars. But the fact that they do it means that they do it for a reason, and you know, you can't deny that fact. You know, that it brings something to the wine, and this is what today's all about: is to explore what that brings for people. If this is the first time you're hearing about whole cluster, if this is the first time you're like, I don't know what that means, but we're drinking some really good Pinot, so I'm happy to come along for the ride. This is, I think, a more prevalent like style of Pinot Noir, and you know, it does benefit nerding out, if only for the next 50 minutes, to go, what does whole cluster mean, so that you know what you're going to get in the glass, or you know what to ask for when you want something in the glass. We should drink some wine. Oh,
okay.
Also, for people who've never been here before, Rachel is also on the call. Rachel is my co-sommelier at Peter Pan, and she's in the chat. So if you have any questions, anything about the wine, any nerdy thing, any technical question, please ask her. Most of you all have been here before. We're all good friends here. So you know, shout out to Rachel. Thank you. But yeah, let's taste some wines. What number do you want to? We're going to drink these blinds, by the way. I haven't. Obviously, you got this little list, and it says what wines are, but there's not really an order to it. So I really wanted, you know, there are some wines that there's a very broad spectrum of price range, and I wanted to take people's biases and assumptions out of the equation and allow us to taste some wines without necessarily knowing what it is. And this isn't about judging it or comparing, but it is just about appreciating what's in the glass for what's in the glass, and not for the prestige of Burgundy. Because obviously there is an amazing Burgundian producer that I love and adore in the tasting. And I didn't want that overwhelming or like leading up or, you know, making people like think that it's going to be the best, because it may not be the best, or best is irrelevant. Anyway, I didn't explain that. So
do you want to taste them all first and then unveil at the end, or do you want to unveil as we go?
no, we'll unveil as we go. I mean, there's no point. This is a very loose, structure. Let's not pretend that we can keep this going. And who wants to wait for 50 minutes to figure out what the wine is? So the order is, this is what is in here, but there is no order. But everyone has 1, 2, 3, 4. So Jake, 1, 2, 3, 4. What are we drinking first?
We'll go 1 first.
Okay, 1. This is a little bit more like descriptive because these wines will taste very similar to one another, and it will be about like pulling them apart and just sort of seeing what makes them work, what makes them doesn't, like how they differ from one another. But very aromatic. Ooh, this is a good one.
Yeah. Actually, I wish I had the light here, but I was trying to compare.
Yeah, this is probably, I'm looking at it, it is the second most pale. I think number 3 is probably the most pale. This is, they all look unfiltered, except maybe one of them doesn't, but this has a pale, this is a little bit more garnet in comparison, but just slightly. I love how slow this is, and like just this juicy ripe fruit.
Yeah. I think I know this one.
So when we talk about whole cluster, what are the flavor differences that come to your mind that help you, or help if you had to describe it to someone? What are they getting when they drink a whole cluster wine?
I think you get a much wider spectrum of flavor profiles, because usually when we talk about wine, we focus solely on fruit, and then you have the condition of fruit mainly due to climate conditions. So whether it was ripe, underripe, jammy, and also aging. And then we move from fruit to oak afterwards, or even secondary aromas depending on the grape variety. With whole cluster, I find that you create this lift in the aroma that's almost wild and gamey, as opposed to clean. I don't want to make it sound bad. It's just it's there's a wildness to the fruit, and then there's a florality as well that I find with carbonic wines, and then often a slightly herbal tinge, and that probably contributes to the florality too, where stem inclusion will add aroma, will add flavor, and when you do carbonic fermentation, that's inevitable unless you're cutting off every berry like Maury Taz does. So that's what I usually find. I find that there's a prettiness to the wine. There's a vibrancy to this wine. There's an energy to the wine that you wouldn't see as often with destemmed wines.
Yeah, I definitely get that, and I definitely get this intense florality, and I think that's really cool. And I like how I think it binds the wine a little bit better. I think the wines, like all the flavors, kind of integrate slightly better, and just have this very herbal kind of smooth. It's just this really smooth kind of product, which, one of the things that I was taught when I first started drinking Pinot Noir as a sommelier, it was Pinot Noir has this can often have this difficulty and this like severity to it, especially in its youth. And like I feel whole cluster kind of like smooths that out a little, as does an oak and all those kinds of things. But
I mean, well,
this is
Pinot
pretty,
Noir is fairly difficult to grow, and then also difficult to make wine out of because you're not getting much out of the skins, which a lot of red wines rely on for a lot of the flavor that comes from red wines. So you really have to have a grower and a winemaker that knows how to coax the tannin and the color and the flavor out of those grapes. And I remember the first time I had a Pinot Noir in 2005. I was doing the CAPS course at Niagara College, and I sat down, and I've never really had a proper Pinot Noir. I mean, I was 19, 20 at the time, and I remember tasting it, and I thought, is this okay? There's something wrong with this wine. I've never experienced something like this, and it's that roasted beet, that earthiness that we associate with great Pinot Noir. But I think it probably was a carbonic example that I was trying at the time, because oftentimes Pinot Noir just has red fruit, and it really, you have to know how to give it all of the other things that sommeliers and wine geeks look for.
yeah. And you know, Neil asked a good question about like whole cluster would be taste a little bit more old world, and like I get that kind of like, you know, understanding, because you know wine is all about layering different like creating a layer of complexity and using different elements to like layer complexity and layer flavor, so that you get this like very complex, very nuanced thing. And that's something old world winemakers tend to have already figured out and through their traditions. And you know, if you see, not at this level, but like you see like, you know, new world winemakers, it's kind of fruit and oak, and that's kind of an alcohol and extraction, and that's kind of all the complexity they're able to like make work for them. But I get that. Like I get like 3 of these wines are new world. So like, but this doesn't drink new world. This isn't hitting me in the face with fruit. And sure, fruit does make has a very important role to play in this wine, but I'm also getting like a very smooth, very luxurious journey with this wine. And there is herbalness, there is florality, there is these like other non-fruit characters, which, you know, could fool people into thinking that it's new world. So I'm not mad at that. And I really like this one.
Well, I see that the new world, old world conversation is a lot more difficult now, because the old world is trying to look like the new world, and the new world is trying to look like the old world. And I think oak is the big thing that kind of plays a role. And unfortunately, sometimes if you're going to do carbonic fermentation, then use a lot of new oak, some of those subtle, nuanced, earthy herbal tones can be masked, can be hidden by the oak. Oak is a very abrasive, aggressive thing. Often, if you have a wine that is fairly herbal and green, you can use oak to kind of fix mistakes, if I can say, and hide some of those underripe characteristics.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm not afraid of underripe aromas. I'm not afraid of green and herbal. If I have a Cabernet Franc, I expect it. If I have a Carmenere, I expect it. And if the Cabernet Franc doesn't have a green aroma, I'm disappointed. It doesn't really make itself differ from Cab Sauv or Merlot in its fruit profile. So, crying puppy over there.
No, London, your dog was. I saw it in frame just a bit of looking at the front door. I like how fresh this wine finishes. I like how it. Hello.
No,
the problem
no
with black dogs, there's no definition in their features. I like how fresh this wine finishes. Like it is very easy to drink, and I just want to keep drinking it. And I think, as much as we talk about complexity, I think that's like number one rule of good wine is that you want to keep drinking it and or you want to finish the whole bottle because at the end of the day, that's what wine comes in. As much as I wish it wasn't the case, as much as I don't serve wine in bottles anymore, I only serve them in pouches. But we ought to, sometimes you talk about, oh, this wine would be great, but only a glass because I couldn't finish the bottle. I get that, but I really want to keep drinking this wine, and thankfully I have a full bottle in front of me, so that's probably what I'm going to be drinking tonight.
Hmm.
Okay, so what did you think this wine was? Oh.
I think this is ours.
Yeah, it is. You got it right. Big head.
Well,
As you can see
should...
by the label, how clear that is. But, I did necessarily, like, I definitely did. Oh, I can put this in the chat now, what the wine is. When I started this idea of whole pasta, there were 3 winemakers that had a shared history, elements of, and these are the wines that I wanted to feature. And I was like, well, who wants to do a 3-flight wine tasting? That's boring. If anything, I live for 5 wines in a night. But I needed another wine, and I was like, well, I should feature a local wine because that's a really important aspect of as a sommelier is to showcase cool local wineries. And obviously, I think everyone in the chat knows Big Head Wines. They love Big Head Wines, and so that was a no-brainer for me because your Pinot Noir has, as with your Syrah, these raw red wine wines that you make have always defined really changed the paradigm of how sommeliers and wine professionals think of local wine. You think everything is the same. You think every Pinot Noir is the same, and then you put a Big Head wine in front of someone. They're like, wow, I've never had something like this. I think the first one I bought from Big Head was a Sauvignon for Peter Pan.
Oh, wow.
Whoever does that? Which crazy person would ever buy Sauvignon as their first wine? Anyway.
Well, this was actually our first carbonic wine ever.
Really? Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. So it took me a couple of years to convince my father to do it because a lot of winemakers in Niagara are afraid of the green, and you have many people on the sorting table pulling out stems, making sure that none of that stuff gets in. So all we did was take the whole bunches and put them in a 4-ton concrete vat, and then left it for a couple of days, and then did pump overs twice a day for a couple of weeks. And then this is all free run juice, aged in concrete, unfined, unfiltered. And this was our very first carbonic wine. And now all of our wines are carbonic. The Gewürztraminer, the Chenin, everything we do is carbonic because of this. So, yeah.
The day, as someone who knew briefly before Raw kind of hit the ground, I remember the way that Raw Syrah, the first time you released it, blew through the sommelier and wine professional community in Toronto. That was all everyone could talk about. And I can tell you that very rarely happens. Maybe there's 1 or 2 other local wines that have ever done that. And like I said, I'm preaching to converted. The audience definitely know your wines, and are excited that we get to show this. And I don't know, let's keep tasting and just see what else comes of it. What wine are we going to drink next, Jakey boy?
Oh, that's good. I'm a little obsessive compulsive, so let's do 2 next.
Okay, 2 it is. This one. This is a little bit more oak on the nose. I think a little bit more creamy.
Yeah, but you still get that zippy fruit. There is that brightness and that freshness. And we're doing we are known for making Appassimento wines as well, but now we're doing carbonic with the Appassimento because I find with the Appassimento you dry out the fruit. You don't get a lot of that primary fresh aroma, but then the carbonic reinvigorates it. It makes it alive again. So you still get that fruitiness under the oak. I think this is an age-worthy wine. So that way those two things will mold together and become better down the road as well. So
This is, I like this. There's definitely that like zip to it and there's like energy to it. And I think that is perhaps another thing that maybe I would say that Hulk Cluster can kind of give. Can give like an energy to the Pinot Noir and give it like a bit of liveliness on the palate. And it is a textural quality before anything else. I don't know. What do you think of this one? One number two.
I like it. I like it a lot. I actually like oak. I don't mind oak. I've never been abused by oak, whether it was the over oaked Chardonnays or anything. I like oak Chardonnays, and that's not the fact that I was raised by a winemaker. I think this is one of the most exciting for me from this lineup for some reason.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it.
Definitely the one I wasn't as familiar with. Yeah, whereas your wine had this freshness to it, this is definitely finishes like very more tannic, much more like dry on the palate, which I don't necessarily prefer. I definitely prefer a more lighter touch and like a more fresher style in wines in general. But I can just, as I know what this wine is, because I'm a control freak, I will definitely say that like this is kind of what I expect. And I'm kind of
I
this is
think
literally the first time
this
I've had
is
this wine and I'm excited to try it.
I like it in this lineup. For me, as far as the structure is concerned, the acidity stays with you all the way through. Um, it has that coarse tannin at the finish, but that just means that we opened it a little early,
Yeah.
or decanting, or having it with food might benefit. But this has some of the longest flavors out of the four. Just because I've been going back and forth, I like to be able to compare, so that way I have references. But no, this is a serious wine.
What do you think this wine is? Like which wine do you think it is?
I don't know. Like I always think that the you're gonna finish off with the banger, like the Dujac at the very end. But this kind of feels like it might be the Dujac.
It isn't the Dujac. This is the Christum.
Oh wow! Surprised.
Viola Amity, Willamette, Pinot Noir, Mount Jefferson Cuvée. And why I said, like, I can see, it. When I talk about like the oak use in this, it could either go two ways. In my mind, it can either go to the US because you don't sell wine if you don't use oak, or you can go to like high-end Burgundy where oak is, a symbol of prestige and status and like wealth and privilege and all that kind of thing. And so for me, and I agree, this is absolutely too young probably to drink this wine, but it's 2021. Too young. There's no such thing as too young anymore. Let's just drink
And this is
whatever we want to.
2018.
Yeah, 2018. But it does have this American like charm to it. That it is slight, like it is a little extracted. It's a little higher in alcohol. It's a little bit more oak. There's a little bit more, but it does have Pinot Noir. Not Pinot Noir.
I found that I mean I've had a lot of Oregon Pinots of late, and they've been a lot higher in oak and a lot less balanced. So that's why I was a little surprised, because this is tasty.
So Christum, so when we connect the lines that connect the last three wines, because we've already drank the big head, was that both Christum and the By Far, both of the winemakers, past, I think present, have spent a lot of time working in Dujac, at Dujac, at Domaine Dujac, over numerous vintages. And definitely, I think their style stems from a more Dujakian style, and which equates to whole cluster. Back in the 70s and 80s, when Domaine Dujac was just starting, Jacques Dujac definitely led led the charge of whole cluster in Burgundy, and he influenced a lot of winemakers. And so, my favorite winemaker in the world, obviously, is by far. It's from my hometown. I drink it. I wish I could drink it every day. Um, but I was always intrigued because Christum was always the other winery like talked about in any conversation Nick Farr had about like his influences. That it was Christum, that it was Dujac, because of their times they spent working together in France. And I'd never actually tasted Christum before, and I was really intrigued to sort of see what it was all about. I definitely get this. I understand how this is very whole clustery and very like Dujac-esque. I look, the honest truth is I've never really been enamored by Oregon Pinot Noir away some other people. But it's probably just because I haven't tasted it, enough of it, you know.
Mm.
But this is good. This
No,
is a
and
good wine.
I find that a lot of them are moving towards a more of a California style, just because that's where the money is. So that's why I've been maybe put off by Pinots from
And
there.
it's expensive. Like there's no
Yeah.
way around the fact that like you will have to pay for your Oregon Pinot. So this is biodynamically farmed, certified sustainable. What they say on the back of the label, which I think is really fun, is this one is the embodiment of Christum style, marrying whole cluster and netic fermentations to multi-generational farming with a focus on our vineyard sites that are benchmarks of the region, whatever that means. That means something, which I think is silly, but I think it's really fun. And I think if anything, this wine has really intrigued me, and I really want to like visit them. Put them on the call, but the people like the agency who bring this in, I don't really deal with, and so the chances of me ever doing a Christum like lineup is slim to like zero. So I probably have to go to the vineyard and like the winery and taste it. But this is kind of a fun wine, and I agree. It needs a little bit of age, but. And you can kind of see it's a bit more purpley than the others. There's a little bit more extraction. There's a little bit more color to this wine. But maybe I'm biased.
Winemaking.
I'm literally biased. This is terrible. I remember one of the tastings we did with Bruce at Son Factory was like trying to pull apart the like the subregions of Willamette. And then the way they like were striving, we were like a test case of like we really hope you can do it. And we're like, no,
it's not possible.
Not taste the same. Oregon Pinot Noir definitely has a style, but whether Eola Amity Hills is different or.
But I mean, to be fair, we tried to do the same with Burgundy even, and I think you were there for those classes. We did, because I did advance so many times. It's a blur. Back in
the day.
Back in the day. But we did horizontals. So we took out as many variables as possible. I think it was 2012, 2009, 2005 or something like that. And we wanted to do the major villages and try to figure out if Gevrey-Chambertin was the meaty masculine one, if Chambolle-Musigny was the pretty floral one, and we couldn't figure it out. But what we could figure out was when they were from the same house. I think we should talk about house style a little bit more, not just with Old World, but with New World. The only time we actually could kind of differ between the regions and the the terroir of place was when we did Barolo. Barolo, I found, was the most different between the different villages there.
I agree. I remember doing many years ago at Peter Pan before everything shut down. I think Neil was there. I think there were a few other. I think Darren was there, and Andrew were there. Like a Beaujolais, we did not the 9 cruiser Beaujolais because I couldn't find the 10th. Like Saint Amour was almost impossible to find. But they're like at the end of the day, the wine, like the house style and the winemaking and the producer who made that wine was so much more influential than the crew of it. And I think, that is always like, if you quiz me on my favorite Burgundian winemakers or older winemakers, I wouldn't remember what village they're like known for, or like where their village, like their the village that defines their winemaking. But like, I know their style. I know what to expect when I get a glass. I know what I like. But like, and I think, Dujac is easy because Marie-Saint-Denis is like where they start from. But like, no one thinks of Marie-Saint-Denis is like the home, like what Dujac is like great at. But it is. I think I think you're right, the house style is much more important. And it's a harder pill to swallow. It's like figuring out the producer and remembering a producer. But like, if you like drinking wine and you like drinking Pinot Noir and Burgundy, like have your favorites and have the wines that you really, know why you like them. I like Dujac because of its whole cluster. That's the end of the story,
But I find that once you do get lucky enough to figure out which producer kind of resonates with you, they'll make wine in, let's say, low score vintages that will still be pleasurable or enjoyable to you. So it's nice because I've had some wines, like I remember there was this one tasting with California producers. It was the Vines 5-year tasting. I forget what year it was. I think it was 2015. They had it, but a lot of the winemakers were pouring their 2011s, and they were apologizing for their 2011s, saying, "Oh, this was a tough vintage." And I kept saying, "This is my favorite wine that you make." So, no, it's nice that that you can figure out which producer works for you.
Yeah, I mean that said, I do like Saint-Malo-Musigny. It's kind of my favorite village, not only because I just like those wines. I just like the Vogue. I just want to drink all the Vogue in the world, but that's not reality in any capacity.
I didn't know.
Wine number 3, I assume is the wine number 3 that we're going to drink. Yes, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
The whole idea of it be like a random blind tasting has fallen by the wayside. But I gave you agency to choose the way we drank these wines, and I'm gonna respect that.
I'm glad we went to this order because
this wine.
I know you know this wine, and I know it too because I had it about a month ago. Bought it at your store. Oh.
Yep, I can hear you. Can you not hear us?
Oh, no, I just cut out because I got the wireless. This is the most intense out of all of them. And for some reason, that part of the world, whether it's Australia or New Zealand, I don't know how they do it, but their Pinots can be the most perfumed. I would love to know why, because I'd love to be able to recreate it.
Well, we will go down to Australia and we will drink these wines, and I will make sure that you get to experience it firsthand. Also, the place in the world that these wines are made are, they say wine is grown where in beautiful places, and take it from me, this isn't a beautiful place. I mean, land is beautiful, but this isn't a beautiful. This isn't like the rolling hills of Burgundy, or the you know, the gentle, like meandering down the Moselle. This isn't that level beauty. This is like, but oh
This is
my God, I love this
home.
one. This is literally the first time, and we poured some of Nick Farr's wines over the years, over the months. We did Wine Coach, and this is the first time we poured an actual by far wine. And I'm really excited to finally be able to share this with everyone. It's so aromatic. But I know this one and I look for it. But
How did he get it so aromatic? That's what I'm trying to figure out, because he really pushed the envelope with whole cluster. Like there is that intense fruit, and then there is a lot of like earthy, slightly vegetal aromas that but like fresh. Like I get this weird beet jalapeno thing, and the oak. I assume there's oak on it. It's just it's the one that screams the most.
yeah, I don't know. These are the things I know about Nick. And when I went to visit in 2017, I went down to his winery. Now, this is the other thing. This is a weird thing, but there's another winemaker that we featured from Australia from Victoria called Bindi. Very iconic. I was talking to Nick and he's like, yeah, Michael from Bindi gets perhaps, nine inquiries a week for people to come visit his winery and do a winery tour with him, like professionals, not like, SOMs and agents and writers and stuff. And he's like, I probably get like 9 people a year inquiring about mine. And obviously this has changed because he was awarded Winemaker of the Year by Gourmet Traveler in 2020. But back then he felt very underappreciated, and not underappreciated, but like unseen in the wine world, which is phenomenally ridiculous. But the land, like, and this also is a generational thing. So his father, Gary Farr, he put Pinot Noir sort of on the map in Victoria. He ran this winery. He was a winemaker for a winery called Bannockburn, and for a long time, especially in the 90s and the 2000s, like really put Pinot Noir on the map for Australia, in that it was Shiraz, it was Cabernet, like it was Shiraz in Barossa. Then you go to Margaret River, and that's what everyone was talking about Cab for, and no one was really talking about Pinot Noir. And then Michael Dillon from Bindi and Gary Farr from Bannockburn really started making these great wines, and people started paying attention to going, oh shit, perhaps Pinot Noir is potentially a great one. So you've got a bit more like evolution through just many more years than a lot of other new world winemakers. But this is the wine, Sangreal by Farr. The reason it's called Sangreal, and so they name their vineyards by different names. So there's Farside, there's Toupret, there's Sangreal, there's another one I forget. Sangreal is called because at the time Nick's father Gary really liked the Da Vinci Code, and so that's why he named the vineyard when he planted it Sangreal.
Royal blood.
But there's
it smells a little bloody.
Yeah, so you're getting this iron kind of, and that is one thing that they kind of like talk about when you go visit, is like they have these it's a very clay-based soil, very iron rich, but it also has these like really small iron like pebbles, like buckshot kind of level, that sort of are scattered throughout the soil. And so this is the vineyard that has the most concentration of that, and so that's why you get this like irony kind of minerality to it. I don't know.
It's tasty. Actually, my father, I gave him. We opened it together, and he was quite impressed, and he's in the room right now. So no, he really enjoyed this one.
So people don't know that, though. They don't know that your parents are also participating in this call. So,
Hi.
I really like this wine. I think, I mean, I've been a big fan of these wines. It's common knowledge. If you don't know how much I love these wines, then I'm not, I'm not. You can buy a bottle from the shop, and I will explain it to you. But there's lots of oak. I get that oak on there. I mean, obviously, this needs much more time. This is 2017 vintage. I think maybe 3 or 4 more years. I think you'll get a little bit more integration with the oak, but I'm not mad at it.
No, I'm not either. And I like that it's there because it just adds another component to the wine, and I think it's it's a wine that will be pleasing to a wider spectrum of palates, not just you and I and other geeks that look for non-fruit aromas. Like you need to make sure that at the end of the day the wine sells.
Yeah.
You can't just have it and buy it yourself. That won't really make a sustainable business plan.
Look, we've tasted three wines. I feel that like the freshness and the acidity of wine three and wine one, so the Big Head and the Black Bar, definitely have this really appealing quality to me. You know, again, I think wine two has a little bit more on the back end, a little bit more tannin structure, a little bit more extraction, a little bit more sort of grounded quality, sort of at the end of the taste journey. Um, they're all whole cluster, but they're all very different wines. And I'm really, I think maybe that's why I kind of like also, enjoy tasting the Big Head wine, because it does have that like freshness and liveliness that I really enjoy from the Black Bar wines. Like you won't, this is their second most serious wine, their most expensive wine. This is kind of hallmark for them. You're not going to get a Christum. You're not going to get this like heavier, more tannic wine. All the wines are always going to be lighter on their feet, because Australia is known for these big, bold, kick in your face wines. And so one way to you know, to pull yourself apart from that is to be making a bit more fresher style. And it's Australian because of the nose. Like it's eucalypt, it's mint. There's so much that the aromas coming from it just like very much scream Australia for me. This reminds me of fun.
Do you know how much whole
Geelong is a
cluster was on this one?
trash bag world. Sorry.
Do you know how much a whole cluster was in this wine? Because it seems like it's like, if not 100%, it's the numbers are fairly high compared to the Christum.
Let's have a look. Ba-ba-ba-bum. Oh, I love these wines. I hope everyone enjoyed this wine. I mean, I hope everyone enjoyed all the wines. These are pretty delicious. He actually makes a Gamay. I forgot that he gave me a bottle of the Gamay, and I was like, I don't want a bottle of the Gamay. I want a bottle of your fancy wines. But that's fine. No, doesn't say. Oh no, here we go. 40%, 40 to 50% whole cluster.
Yeah, surprising. Oh, 50, okay.
60% new oak, 18 bottled for 18 months. Yeah, their website's really good. So if you're interested, these wines mostly are at the LCBO. This is where I buy them from. The fact that no one buys them at the LCBO is the reason why I have them in my shop. They also, if you're interested, the classics has his Chardonnay, the By Far Chardonnay available right now. I think it's $75 a bottle. I would definitely recommend you buying it. It's super great. Should we get to like the last wine? The wine I assume everyone it's the only reason why everyone wanted to buy a ticket. But that's just because I'm insecure. But Domaine Dujac. I'm gonna actually ask Jeremy when I meet him next week, why is it called Domaine Dujac? But I think I know why, but let's see. 2018 Marie Saint Denis. This is like their entry level wine. Talk me through it, Jake. What do you get from this? You definitely taste more wine than me.
Um, I like it. Um, I bought a couple bottles of it. Um, it's it's a very safe wine I found in this lineup. It doesn't really scream anything in any direction. It's a very subtle. If we were to say one of these wines is the most old world, this is the one. Um, but it's a beautiful wine. There's a depth to this wine that the other three screamers might not have. It's just
Uh,
there's this.
no, I disagree with you there. I think there's lots of things with
Well,
this wine. I would also say that like this drink's equally as enjoyably as the others. I don't think more so. I think it
oh no, I didn't
it
I didn't say more so.
it's
I say it's very different. I find that this one would be the outlier as far as compared to the other three, in that the other ones have the volume is turned up on one characteristic or another on the other ones, while this one is like the volume is on a 6 on a wider range of things. So it's not a flashy wine at all.
no. And I would also say that like, you know, we talked a bit about like by far Christum being influenced by their time working at Dujac, but they were also working at Dujac when Jacques Seyss was working there. And this is not Jacques' wines, this is his son's wine. So, you know, this is also an evolution, like this is also an interpretation of the original style. So this isn't the wine that these wines that Christum and by far stem from. This is also an interpretation, like they're all interpreting a much older style of Dujac. You know, Dujac was 100% new oak, 100% whole cluster. Jeremy has definitely taken moderated a little bit and like a bit more, you know, makes these different, like makes decisions based on the grapes and where are they coming from rather than just like a blanket kind of winemaking. Um, I get that, but I also acknowledge that this is from France and the others are from the New World. So there is definitely going to, it's always going to stand apart. But I also, you know, there's a little bit more in the mid palate. There's a little bit more of this like concentration to it. But like, I, I could, I would happily. I mean, I just have drank all of these side by side, and I think, you know, should Dujac be put on a pedestal? Yes, but not in these like not in this lineup. Like not. I think these hold up against Dujac. I think you see that they all have this whole cluster vibe, and you know, Dujac is a big inspiration when you talk about whole cluster Pinot. But like, this isn't head and shoulders above what it is. I mean, in price, it is. It's definitely double everything. You know, almost. So, you know, it's one of those. I don't know. I there's a part of me, the cynic part of me was like, you know, this wine was going to like stand out and like overwhelm all these other wines, but that really hasn't been the case. I'm like, I definitely get the like the pleasure and like I see what whole cluster brings, and I hope everyone else does. Um, and I don't necessarily need to pay $175 to be able to enjoy this wine. Um, when I know there are other really great whole cluster wines that sort of bring the same amount, right? You know, bring that same charm, bring that same texture, bring that same, you know, enjoyment.
I was surprised you didn't have anything from New Zealand in this lineup, because some of my favorite whole cluster examples are coming from there for some reason.
Yeah, Felton Road, Ripon, yeah, but no one brings them in. They're all private. That I can't get it. I can't get any of this shit.
There's one at the LCBO right now, and it's not their best wine, but there's a producer, Schubert. He's out in Martinborough, and the first time I had their wines when I was in London, I was having lunch with a friend, and we had a Syrah from Schubert that was about 13 years old at the time, and it blew me away. So anytime I see the wines in the market, I get very excited. So I think their Block B is at the LCBO for around $70, or at least it was.
Todd asked that said Felton Road is bartender rated. Absolutely. I had to private order the Bannockburn Felton Road because I have such fond memories of drinking in Australia, and it's like private inquiry only in terms of buying it because no one wants to buy it, which is so silly. Felton Road is Calvert and their Calvert and their Bannockburn vineyards are some of the best Pinot Noir I've ever tasted.
You have a bottle. You have a bottle at Peter Pan right now that
I have one bottle left. Yes. Bruce Walner keeps coming to me when he's doing a New Zealand tasting and saying keeps buying all the bottles from me because he doesn't have any in his own cellar, which is Mount Difficulty is very good as well. Okay, we're rounding it out. What did you have a favorite, Jacob? Did everyone have a favorite? Did anyone not have a favorite?
I can't say ours because I have it so often. I actually stowed away about 15 cases of that wine because it was special to me. Of the other three, for my taste, I'm going to go with By Far. I think the By Far
that's my favorite. I mean, that was a given though.
Well, I like wines that have intensity. I like wines that have a lot of things that I can see. Like I don't like aged wines as much because unfortunately all of the things kind of muddle together, and they're beautiful in their own way. But I like to drink wines a little younger, and my girlfriend gets really upset with me with how quickly I open a lot of things. But it's because I want to see what was done to this wine. And you can see that there was a lot of things that happened in this wine, not necessarily done, but there's a lot of things going on, and they're amplified. And I like carbonic wines because they're amplified. They have a lot of flavor. So this is a great example of what happens when you make carbonic wine well.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun, and I almost never ask the question when I taste a Pinot Noir, oh, like, what is the winemaking? Is it whole cluster? Is it, what's the percentage of new oak? Because you don't want to be that person, because there's always that person in a conversation. It's like, well, like, what's the use to use? And like, well, anyway. But for this, I really need to ask that question because it's clear that, like, I really enjoy drinking these wines and, like, I am biased towards the wine from my hometown because it makes me very like nostalgic. And I like being someone who supports this wine. But I mean, Christum, I think is definitely marked in my brain as like let's learn a little bit more about their winemaking. And American wine isn't something I necessarily, resonate towards, but, I'm super interested. This was a lot of fun. I don't know how I'm going to handle next week. And Jeremy, if you're by chance watching this because you want to know what you're to expect next week when we do our Dujac lineup, I hope this is something you're okay with. But this has been so good, and I've always wanted to like. A lot has been said about Dujac, especially in the By Far and Christum, like they're influenced by Dujac, and it was always something I wanted to explore, and this was a way of doing it. You can see if you put all these bottles side by side, which none of you can do because none of you have them, but this is one like.
Yeah, I felt like the odd one out.
You can see the homage, like without even not like Christum, you can see, but you can see the homage to Dujac in like their bottle shape and the color of their foil, and that's super interesting. Like that's a choice that they made to mimic the winemaker that inspired them, and I always find that the most interesting part of like comparing them is that like, there's a lot you can do in a winemaking, but there's, the foil is also very interesting. Is also a hallmark of winemaking, and I think that's kind of fun. But yeah, where if for people who don't know, who haven't bought their ticket, next Saturday afternoon, it's a weird one, but there's a big time difference involved. Usually everyone lives in the same time zone, if not 100 kilometers away from each other. But this time, Jeremy Sace, winemaker from Dujac, is going to be joining me on the call. Not intimidated at all. That said, the last time I met Jeremy Sace, he was dressed up as Wes Wally. So, you know, that's always Waldo if you're North American. But I'm super excited. We're going to taste some 4 of his wines: the Maurice Saint-Denis White, Maurice Saint-Denis Rouge, which we've already tasted, the Gevrey Chambertin, and then the Extra Grand Cru. And I'm super excited to taste that because who knows what I'm going to say. What stupid, awkward thing I'm going to say. Time can only tell. If anything, tune in for that because that's going to be a good one. And also, before we leave, I did buy a burger and I did buy Maddie's Patties. I was really excited, but then I was like, I'm not going to eat a burger like a slob on camera. I think that's a bridge too far. Jacob, thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate everyone's time. You know, I hope you enjoyed everything. Please let me know if your parents approve of this experience, because I respect them highly, and then the last thing I would want to do is upset them. Because their wines are your family's wines are so good and they sell so well in the shop. I do not want to be blacklisted.
Never be blacklisted. No, this was fantastic, and I'm glad you did this. This was a lot of fun, and putting our wines against some pretty kick-ass wines from other places is kind of cool to see, especially since, I mean, we haven't been making wine that long in Niagara, and it's no, this was great. Thanks, Nick.
I agree. You know, that was always a concern, that like I was like putting a local winemaker against, like, you know, one of the powerhouses of like Burgundy in the world, and like asking people to compare them, and I'm like, oh, this isn't a safe space. But like I literally don't think I had anything to worry about. Like these wines like are different, but like not out of this world different. And I think most days of the week I would 100% want to drink the Big Head. You know, I think this represents local winemaking, and that's much more important than like Instagram shot of me drinking Maurice Saint-Denis. Like supporting local is much more important than like getting a few likes on Instagram. And I hope everyone understands that as well. But thank you very much, Jacob, for your time. Thank you everyone for coming. Hopefully we'll see everyone soon enough. No Tuesday Wine Coach next week because of the Dujac tasting, and I want to go to bed early for once on a Tuesday, but we'll see each other soon. There's, you know, who knows what's going to happen. Maybe we can all I can see everyone face to face in a few weeks' time. You can come to the restaurant and I can just pour you some silly amounts of wine while you like munch on some cheese and charcuterie. But thanks everyone. Thanks Rachel. And I hope everyone has a lovely evening. I mean, get some air conditioning.